Greetings, ladies and mental gents, and welcome to my channel, where I like to make audio narrations of various stories from the internet. In this video, we will be focusing on a story from the subreddit HFY, called Billy Bob, Space Trucker, Chapter 2, written by Regal Eagle. The link to the original story will be down below. And, as always, I hope that you enjoy. In the chaos after the fight, Billy Bob had to lead his new cargo back to his ship and blast it off before the security could figure out what had happened. When he had started up the airlock sequence, though the lady nearly collapsed under the gravity and he had quickly set it to galactic standard and gave his apologies, he had to toss the mittens out of the co-pilot seat, letting the startled cat fly through the lower gravity while he strapped in and got his longhorn fired up, tearing off the space lanes. Phew! That could have gone a lot worse, don't you think? As far as he was concerned, he was off scot-free. What he didn't know was that the Captain Asshole had survived, backed on a hunter-killer class disguised as an atlas that he was clutching his face while the doctor tended to his face wound. The mechanical arms of the computer aid moving to assist as the glass was removed from parts of his face. Cast leader Billy Bob. What happened? The creature growled, and he winced as his face was tended by the machine and a comrade alike. The diplomat hired a Death World mercenary to assist her. She is more dangerous and cunning than we thought. I think that she came here to meet him. We're trying to identify the ship's heading. Just look for the ship itself on a path to the capital. In the past, she was hard to track because she traveled alone. But now, I think she'll stay with the Death Worlder. We must stop her from reaching the capital. If she does, the galaxy, as we know it, will end. Technician Greg skittered into the room. We found the ship through the freight service. It forgot to close out with a fake profile it must have set up for being hired. Excellent. What do we know? We're looking for specifications of the ship right now, but there is a personnel info on the Death World mercenary. B-Robbo read over the info, unsure how he was supposed to pronounce the name. It looked bizarre to him. The mechanical hands of the machine yanked another glass shard from his face as he roared out in pain and anger, screaming out nice and loud. Mark my words, I will have revenge on you. Billy Bob, Space Trucker. Billy Bob was smiling as he settled into the Longhorn into the FTL lane. Wow, 10 billion credits. Serious, no fooling. He looked over at the diplomat. Yes, my mission is very important. My people gave me a large sum of money to get to the capital. 10 billion credits. Indeed, 10 billion. Yes, billion with a B. I think you're referring to letters. My translator is confused. Ah, right. He wrote out a number on the galactic standard trade symbols on a napkin that he had in his cabin. She looked at it and nodded, which was the translator told him was the same for her species as his. Wow. He leaned back in his seat, a big, stupid grin on his face. Yes, if I manage to get there, my device will end the galaxy as we know it. 10 billion. In fact, that's why the Arseways Empire is trying to stop me. I'm going to be one of the richest people alive. Many speculate about the horrors the device will cause, but my species knows it'll bring about a better galaxy. 10 fucking billion. I'm excited. Finally, his brain registered that she'd been talking. Did he ask her to repeat herself? Nah, it was probably nothing important. She was just playing along with his rambling. He couldn't shake the stupid grin on his face at the thought. What was he going to do with the money, besides buy himself a bigger ship? Wait, what if he spent all his money on the biggest possible ship that he could buy? But then he'd need a crew. Shit. He pondered as if impending wealth as she spoke up, and he finally listened. Excuse me, but this isn't heading towards the capital. He looked over at the heading for a moment, thinking about the route that he's had. Yeah, but I have cargo to drop off first. Wait, you intend to deliver your current cargo despite my contract? We haven't signed anything formal yet, lady. What's your name? Emily Earhart. Billy Bob paused and looked up over her. What? That's my name. Seriously, I think my translator is approximating pronouns on me. Hold on. Mentally he told his implant to give him the text, read out what he was hearing, and not to override what he was hearing, and then he asked her to repeat her name. Emily Yeknif. The text in her vision read Emily Earhart. Quickly, he turned the translator back over to override his hearing center and looked surprised. That's kind of amazing. Your first name sounds like a human name, and I'm guessing that your last name is sort of like 2 words mashed together? With that, she nodded. It's unusual then. Most other species have very different names. Stuff that's impossible to pronounce. He laughed at that. Shit right they do, lady. Well, nice to meet you, Emily. I'm Billy Bob. She blinked at that for a moment, seeming a little confused. That's similar to a name used by the arsefaces. He chuckled for a moment, and his translator then glanced over. Wait, what? They also have human-sounding names. Is the term human meant for your species, or a specific clan? Species. I'm from the American clan. Best fucking clan there is. Well then, if your species all have the same names. Well, okay, they're mostly like American names then. But it would be like some Korean guy met an alien named Kim. I know a Kim. Shut the fuck up. Did I say something wrong? Sorry! Exclamation of surprise. Oh, my translator isn't totally set up for your species, it seems. Duly noted. Billy Bob nodded to himself for a moment, impressed and amazed to find out that other aliens had good names. He was tired of all those Z's and Q's and X's. They never seemed to pronounce X's like he felt X's should be pronounced. Yet, Zeno should totally be Zenos. Then he had to go backtrack the conversation in his head, and he realized they'd gotten off track at some point. All right, I'm heading to the colony to finish my current contract, yes. But this path on your nav camp puts us days off course. Well, yeah. Sorry, Emily, but I've never been late on a delivery, let alone skip one, so I'll get you to the capital after this. But I'm offering you 10 billion credits. Yes, and I appreciate that, but I'm not changing my mind on this. I have a reputation, after all. The diplomat leaned back in her seat and then shrugged it off. Honor code. He nodded at that. Something along those lines. I can respect that. Billy Bob was settled into the FTL lanes, moving along steadily with all the other traffic sticking to the gates set by the galactic government. Opposing traffic to the left, keep right, just like the roads back home, aside from those limeys, of course. But if they refused to use metric, or worse yet, space metric, then he wouldn't hold driving wrong against them. Couldn't pull all that shit in FTL lane, though. Hit someone going several times the speed of light? What would happen? A black hole? He wasn't sure, and he didn't intend to find out. He let out a sigh as he began to relax, figuring that he had another 2 space days of travel, and he'd better get back into his groove. The diplomat looked ready to speak up when he heard the crackle of the FTL prox band receiver. Breaker, breaker, big bomber, you got your ears on. This flying Snorlax 410. Buddy Bob looked over at the diplomat for a moment. You're going to want to turn your translator off for this. It's just going to crash. The hooded figure just stared at him as he pulled up the prox band mic. That's a 10-4, flying Snorlax. I've got my ears on. Didn't know anyone else was around these parts. I heard you had a 99 out there. I'm Alice in Wonderland at the moment. My 01 is supposed to be ass past the gas factory. But everything I'm seeing is headed down the burrito bog, or back to the armpit. Shit, Snorlax, you gotta hang up the bugs at that turd bowl, and throttle it down in double nickel onto the local dirt roads. Shite, I've run out of big road. Sir have. All right, Big Bomber. Hey, I sent you a packet. On my recent turns, got yours. Billy Bob tapped a few buttons on his console. Sent it on over, good buddy. Right, well, I'm heading on out, good buddy. Need to find the turd bowl and probably water the engines. 10-4. There was a deep beep, and received a packet of information and set his mic back down. When he was finished, the diplomat was still staring at him. You're right, my translator crashed. Don't worry about it. There was some guy named Ted, friend of mine. He was lost trying to get to his first stop, and heard that I had a final stop out here somewhere. I gave him directions, and then he sent me an info packet. What was in the packet? Turns for a game that we play over FTL procs called Space Civ Tycoons. He's a bit of an insane gamer in that respect, plans out his moves way ahead. I really don't understand any of this. The figure shook her head. Space trucker stuff. It's basically a code, but more to keep things short than anything else. That was short, she asked with a quick reply. To us. Once more, she shook her head. So, your species doesn't mind being alone in space? She asked him, and she gave him a smile. Not at all. Kind of nice. A little boring, but it's nice enough way to make a living. Get to go to new places, look across the void, and see some really gorgeous systems. To be honest, I thought our species was unique in this. All the crews that I've seen need upwards of 50 bodies in order to feel comfortable. She nodded at that. It is not unique, just very rare. Something about being lonely in the void terrifies most species, or drives them insane quickly enough. But not yours either. She shook her head at that. No, we enjoy the solitude as much as company. Well, I'm new to the galactic scene, so you'll have to fill me in a bit on that sort of thing. Yes, I was wondering about that. Your species hasn't even sent their diplomats out this far, but you, space truckers, are flying beyond anything else in order to deliver supplies to other people's colonies. Yeah, sure. They don't like it, since they want to present a nice sculpted picture of what humans are. But most humans are going to be like me, just a hard-working sort and making a living. So that is normal. She asked and pointed at his gut, and he set his hand on it and felt a little self-conscious for a moment, and then he smiled. Sure is. We store food and fat in our internal pouch. To mark of a healthy male is to have some bulk in this area, and to show that we're well-fed and strong. If we're missing one, then either we're malnourished or worse. Worse? Yeah, some humans have this rare disease where part of the brain is filled with regular meat. We call them meatheads, and they work out too much and get really well-defined muscles. It's unhealthy and self-destructing, but they still accept it in society because they can't help it if they have this disease. Billy Bob hoped that she was using a freemium translator that didn't inform her that he was lying through his teeth. Fascinating. Damn, he was good. So you were selected for this job through a caste system? No. We get to choose for ourselves after mandatory government service after high school or college, depending on how far we got. How far did you get? 2 years in community college, then enlisted, tested well on physical aptitude and the mechanical aptitude, very well on isolation. They made me a fighter bomber pilot, which is technically an officer, but an officer of the lowest rank who can't actually boss anyone around, since the flight crews are watched by the deck officer. There was another pause. What's a fighter bomber? He grinned at that. She might be from a species that didn't mind being alone in space, but it sounded like humans were still the only one crazy bastards who had figured that out. Well, looks like I've got some explaining to do. Billy Bob began to explain his training back on Earth. After an early testing, they taught him how to sail a boat, and then told him to sail across the Pacific Ocean on his own. 1 month later, he made it to Bangkok, and a week after that, he made it to Australia, where he was supposed to head to the first place. And then they dropped him back off in the dark side of the moon, gave him a heading and some supplies. 2 days later, he made it to the designated base, and his flight training began. Even among humans who didn't mind being alone, it took a special breed to be okay with being truly and entirely alone. That concept, even on an inhabited planet, freaked most Xenos out. Some humans could be alone in a void and just smile at nothingness around them. Most species couldn't fathom the thought. They were raised on millions of years of herd or pack mentality. Humans had been hunters, and while they achieved great things together, they were happy being spread out. And it was also why their population was low compared to the other species. Some people needed to live in the suburbs, some needed to live in the country, and there were plenty who needed to live so far from the nearest other person that there was an emergency that had fixed it themselves or just died. He told her about humanity's early days and the First Contact War, how they had been found not by galactic government but an aggressive species of space beetles. Humans had never bothered to learn their names. The space beetles struck first in aggression, seeing they had better tech. Humans scrambled to defend their 2 extra solar colonies and Sol, while sending off small bombers equipped with jump drives and the massive collection of nukes humans still had. They knew nothing about FTL lanes or the bigger galactic government. Their scientists had devised a way to sort of skip through space, traveling through something else. He didn't know what, and they didn't cover that in the community college, so they'd hop along through the deep space for weeks or months at a time, and then show up to a glass bug planet. In the end, most of the space beetle fleet was intact, but all of the planets were dead when they surrendered. The fact that we had destroyed every single one of their planets was a surprise to the human leaders, who assumed that the beetles had far more systems, or would have a surrender earlier. Instead of trying to make amends, they instead tricked the bugs into a meeting on the spot an already dead world. Then we showed up, glassed their entire fleet, and knocked the planet into the star in the hopes that no one ever found out we killed the entire species without learning a damn thing about them. Sort of like when a kid breaks something while the parents are out, and instead of admitting it, tries to make it look like the thing was never there at all. Somehow everyone forgot how that never works. The first contact with the greater galactic government had been a fleet of warships congratulating us on our first victory in an interstellar war, and then they told us if we ever wiped out a species again, that they would wipe us out. Strict, but fair. From then on out, it was just the border skirmishes which were allowed, and humans had strength and determination, but they always lacked numbers. Numbers counted for a lot, so the government started new programs to give tax breaks and benefits to people who had as many kids as possible, and then moved somewhere other than Earth. He was about to go on, but at this point the conversation did something that he was used to doing when he was alone. The problem with being solo trucker was when he forgot to watch himself around company. What was that noise? What? That strange noise, she asked. Oh. I was off-gassing. Your species has gas sacs? Sort of. There was an awkward pause before the smell reached her. Oh, deity. What is that smell? Methane, I think. The diplomat made a few gagging sounds, waving 3 of her hands in front of her face, and then she got up and retreated to the back of the cabin, while his face stuck with a nice shade of red. Oh, I can still smell it. It's not that bad. It smells like native creature, died and rotted in the sun for days. She stepped into the bathroom and the door sealed shut, and then he heard the hum of the vent. Well, I guess story time is over for now. He reached forward and turned the music on, trying to drown out the sounds of the distressed diplomat in the bathroom. And so ends another chapter in the adventure of Billy Bob, Space Trucker. End of chapter. If you enjoyed this story and wish to support the author, the link is down below. If you would like to support this channel, there are numerous ways to do so. They will also be listed in the description down below. But the easiest way to help this channel is to share it, subscribe, and like. And, as always, I will see you all in the next video, and I hope that you have a good one. Cheers!